Welcome to another episode of Quick Question with top producing Twin Cities Realtor Dave Oswald. Now, join Dave as he answers your questions about residential real estate.
Sometimes when I'm listing a home, the sellers just want to sign the paperwork. They really don't want to go through it. I kind of force their hand on that, and I go through the key elements of a listing agreement. So this is going to be a little academic, and I'm going to have to do some reading, but I want to go over what the key elements of a listing agreement are with you. So, once we get past the start and stop date of the contract and the price, one of the key areas is at the bottom of the first primary paragraph, and it says the seller acknowledges that neither the broker, the MLS, or the Minnesota Association of Realtors, nor any other broker is insuring the seller or occupant against theft, loss, or vandalism. You have to understand, just because there's a sign out in the front of that house doesn't mean that we're accepting responsibility for your property. Another key paragraph, still on that first page, is the seller's obligation. If you're going to sign a contract, a 4.5-page contract, you ought to know what you're obligated to. So it says that the seller shall notify the broker of any relevant information as it pertains to the property. It gets back to that disclosure, seller's disclosure issues, and anything else that might affect the enjoyment of the buyer on the property. Sellers shall cooperate with the broker in selling the property. Seller shall promptly inform broker of all inquiries seller receives about the property. So in other words, if your neighbor has a friend who wants to see the property, your obligation is to inform us of that and let the realty professionals handle that. The seller also acknowledges that they are responsible for the safekeeping and securing or concealing of any valuable personal property during the showings or open houses. It's scary, but sometimes I've been showing homes and I see people's entire retirement account information laying on their desk open with a checkbook and canceled checks and copies of signatures and account numbers and social security numbers. You are responsible. It spells that out in the listing agreement. There's also a seller content license that the seller is granting license to us to use photos and information about your home if we want to distribute it statewide, nationwide, or worldwide. You're giving us permission. That's called seller content license. Then we get into the broker's compensation, and that's spelled out. There's a fixed portion and there's a percentage portion. That's spelled out. That's very important to look at. Also, in that same paragraph, it states that if within a certain number of days, not to exceed 6 months, after the expiration of the contract, the seller agrees to sell the home to somebody that the broker has shown it to, then those commissions are still due. But that the seller also understands that they do not have to pay the broker's compensation if the seller signs another valid contract. So all bets are off once you relist with a different broker, if that is your choice. Now, those are some of the important parts. We move on to page 3. There's a disclosure regarding FDIC coverage for the earnest money, because that's part of the payment on your home, but that money we have to disclose is in an FDIC insured account. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is. It can be. Agency representation. This is a big deal. When listing your home, you are agreeing that it's okay, in my case, for me to allow another Coldwell Banker Burnett agent to show the property. Ultimately, we come into a situation called dual agency, and we've explained that on previous episodes of Quick Question. But you have to give us permission to allow that to happen. And being in this market, that Coldwell Banker Burnett agents represent 25 to 30% of the realtors out there, you certainly wouldn't want to cut them out of the opportunity to show your home. Now, there's a couple of other important paragraphs, and then I'll wrap this up. Fair housing. It's written right here in the listing contract. You are agreeing that we cannot refuse to sell or discriminate in the terms, conditions, privileges of sale to any person due to his race, color, creed, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, status with regard to public assistance, handicap, sexual orientation, or family status. We cannot discriminate as to who buys your home. It's against the federal law. Lastly, we talk about multiple offer policy, and this is an important one in your listing agreement. You need to give me permission to disclose to another agent if there's an offer already in play. Oftentimes, an agent will call me and say, Dave, do you have any active offers on that property at 123 Main Street? I can only answer that question two ways. One, if you give me permission, I can say yes or no, whichever the case may be. I'll always tell them the truth if I have permission from you. Otherwise, my other answer is I'm not at liberty to say. So, those are important paragraphs in the listing agreement. They are key elements that you need to pay attention to when it comes time to selling your home. I'm glad you were here today. I look forward to the next time we visit and we answer a quick question.
Have a quick question about residential real estate? Email it to us at quickquestion@daveoswaldhomes.com.